And we are live. We are here. Monday night news. I don't really have much news, but I do have some amazing updates. Okay. So if you tuned in to last week, then you were hearing about Curbio. Curbio is a company that they partner up with agents and basically help the homeowner get their house to, I guess you would say, staging status, right? So they go in and they fix up things, and you get to pay them at the end of your closing. And the reason why I wanted to bring that to you is because I don't know if I fully explained that last week, because I had just gotten off the phone with Curbio. I'd been dealing with the vice president of sales, and basically what had happened to my client was he had Curbio come in with, the agent recommended them, and I showed you the tile work they did. I wasn't planning on showing it today, but just in case you missed last week, this was the tile work. I don't know if you guys can really see that. I'm just trying to let it focus for a minute. So you guys can see, like, it doesn't even match going up to the window. This was just the icing, okay? Like, we didn't even get into the cake part. I mean, they had unfinished painting, they had drips. It looked like a 5-year-old went in and painted. And now what Curbio does is they obviously contract out the work. So they get a GC, and the GC hires out people, and it's always someone trying to make money in the next line. So it's like they try to, I don't know how they exactly do it, but it just doesn't look good, right? I think the GC gets paid from all of them, and then the GC obviously pays Curbio. I guess that doesn't really matter, but my client had a $40,000 bill, and me and my business partner Sean, we had to go in and we refinished everything that they touched. They left trash behind, and it was a constant chasing game, you guys. So from, I believe, September to, I mean, we just closed on the house, you guys. We just closed on it literally 3 days ago, Friday. So it's been a runaround, but I wanted to let you guys know I did deal with this situation, and we ended up getting his $40,000, like 41,000 and some change, down to 10,000. So it took a lot of fighting, and he's not one to speak up for himself. Like, I reviewed their contract, everything. There were several things on there that he didn't even see, and if I wouldn't have pointed it out, he would have been charged for a vanity that was never delivered, a mirror that was never delivered, and then there was labor obviously attached to that. So there were thousands of dollars of stuff that was not done. Also, the job itself was supposed to be executed rather fast, and because he did pay a premium for that, and I believe that was 30 days. You guys, this started in, I want to say March, but it could have been May. But either way, look where we are today. So if he would have sold his house and it would have been on the market before school started and before people were buying home, like, people were buying homes all the time, but there's always that spike in home sales. And when you have that spike, you can sell your home for a little bit more. It's going to dip in the slower season. And so, we added everything up, and it was around 100 grand he had lost. So I want to know if you guys ever dealt with anything like this. And like I said, we did resolve it with Curbio. We didn't take them to court. And it's all done. I want to know what you guys all think. So tell me in the comments what you think. Has this ever happened to you? Should have I handled it different? What can you give me for advice next time? Or hey, hopefully this story helped you. So I do have a couple of people backstage, but first of all, hold on. Okay. Freddie Mac literally just texted me. So you guys, he's telling me something. Hold on. So he just told me, you guys, that we can't expect, the prices, the interest rates to drop too much more, right? They might go to 6.3. And I think that's where we're mainly staying, because you have Fannie Mae, which she's awesome. I've hung out with her a few times. Fannie Mae, and you got Freddie Mac. And then also, you got some bigger name banks like Wells Fargo. They're all at the 6.3. So I kind of trust what they're saying. Sorry, I love Freddie and Fannie. Anyway, Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, you guys, because there's some good things coming up. It's not just, my silly news, but I want to bring you value. I want to tell you how, being creative and doing different things to those deals. When you get a hot lead, there's so many ways you can close it. Don't just stick to a cash offer, okay? But there's one thing that I do recommend you're always doing on these deals, and that's having a transaction coordinator. Um, I can't express it enough. There's several things that can happen that are completely, you know, see, I don't really deal with it, so I can't really talk about it, but there's a lot of things that can be messed up. And if you have to deal with that, plus dealing with the seller, plus, trying to deal with all their emotions and hardships and making sure this whole deal just stays together and doesn't spin out of control, transaction coordinators help it stay nice and tight and neat. So I want to welcome one of my good friends, Jess, up on stage, and we're going to talk to her about why transaction coordination is so important to hi Jess.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good,
uh
good.
Good. So I was just explaining to them, because I think it's super important to have a transaction court. That say that 10 times fast. We'll just say a TC. Okay. It's really important to have a TC when you have a deal that you're trying to get to the finish line. And to me, like, you make it so simple for us. To me, I wouldn't have as many deals as I do now, like that have been completed, and be able to show off this HUD if it wasn't for TCs like you. Can you explain to them why it's so important in the stress that you can take away from investors? Hi, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. So TCs really manage the process of the deal to get them to close faster, but I'm going to use like a very simple analogy to like think about it, how you'd use it in everyday life. You wouldn't want if, you were getting your car fixed, you wouldn't want the person who's running the front of the house to be also running the back of the house when your car is on the lift, making sure that every screw got into place, and then the phone rings and you have to go back. You're going to forget about something in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound like two people should be doing that job. So same thing with investors and TCs. An investor is really the beginning of that jail, managing the investment of, starting that transaction. And then when it gets handed over to the TCs, we make sure nothing falls, that it closes on time. For example, a deal that I'm working right now, the investor has a goal to buy a certain amount of properties by the end of the year. And, working with the title company, we've got the title back, and there's a few liens on it. There's a memorandum where how the mortgage was created. It was created by a nonprofit. So there's a high likelihood that the note will be called due once the transaction closes. And so for this particular investor, we went back to him and he's like, just close it. He's like, keep going. I have a goal. We'll figure that out. However, if there's not a TC in place in that, when is he going to actually look at those documents and get them, make sure that everything's in place and that he actually wants to do this, how to not a TC not be in there. So we're really making sure all those balls are juggling in the air, making sure you're getting your seller disclosures, your utility information, everything that really makes it nice and tight. And then there's, post-closing services like making sure you're servicing the note. So working with a company to find who would service a note if you are doing like a sub-2 deal or anything that really carries a note versus a cash deal.
Wow, that was great. That was a lot of information and a lot of value, you guys. And if you don't know everything she's talking about, how, a due on sale clause can be brought up and in all these different things, it's because they deal with them. And if you don't know this stuff, you don't Sean, help me. You get necessarily, I don't have to deal with it, right? I get to do what I love to do, and that's close deals and deal with the sellers and, just do my thing. I don't have to worry about all of, coordinating every transaction and making sure that, you know, there's no liens and what that stuff looks like. That would take up a lot of my time, and I wouldn't be able to build all that rapport that I have with my sellers and get as many deals to the finish line that I do. Right, Sean?
Yeah,
Back
definitely.
me
I
up
mean,
here.
transaction coordination is absolutely critical. I mean, it allows us to free up our time to go bring more deals in, right? Because I've done, uh, there's 3 deals that I have not used a transaction coordinator on. Every single time, about 90% of the way through the deal, I'm always kicking myself because I'm like, I should have just used a transaction coordinator and made my life so much easier. Because like you don't want to be in the middle of your day, or let's say like you guys have a W-2, you're doing this on the side. Like, do you really want to be taking calls at work from the title company and saying, oh, we have this fire to put out now, and I need to get this document over to this person. I need to communicate with this person at title, and I need to contact the utility companies and all this stuff. And like transaction coordinators are worth their weight in gold. So just even if find a way to make it happen with a TC, like just I was cheap at the beginning and I was like, I don't want to pay for a transaction coordinator. I can save that money and do it myself. It's never worth the headache.
How many hours do you think you put into that, the deals that you weren't having a TC on?
I honestly, I don't know. It's just the best answer is way too many. Like, I could have been taking all those hours and called more sellers, got more deals. And I was just, it's not that I'm wasting time because it's something that needs to be done to get the transaction done and get this deal over, or get a deal over the finish line. But there's a who for that. Like there's somebody like you that specializes in that knows the questions to ask and can take care of it all. And it's just another part of your day versus like me. I figured out transaction coordination as I went along. It's not like I knew everything, and there was stuff I missed and stuff that came back to bite me. And it's always worth it to just hire the TC.
Absolutely. And what I love too is that they stay in contact with you every step of the way, right? You're not left in the dark. You know where you are at in your deal. You know what they call you. If they need something from the seller, they usually call the seller. Yeah, they usually call the seller.
Part of the process is, you know, when you get that title back, you need to like be in line with your investor so that they know everything. You can't just like, it's not something that you keep going through. It's like, do you want to continue on this process? Like I was talking about the person who he's, you know, has a goal of closing a certain amount of deals by the end of the year. Is this more riskier? Yeah, but that's his decision to make. It's not mine. It's just being able to say like, hey, I've got this information back for you. What do you want to do? This is what I think. And he's like, keep going.
So Jess, on average, what would it cost, you know, a wholesaler or an investor to hire you?
I think probably off the, like, just on average with the deal, about $1,200 for each transaction. But, you know, if you're putting 20, 30 hours into it,
that's amazing, you guys. Do you hear that? And there's a lot of times you could be like, hey, Jess, my TC, is there a way you could put your fee and wire it in so the buyer might have to pay for it or somebody else? And they typically can, or split costs. There's way that they can do it where you might not even have to shell out that cost. You know, it just really depends. It really
depends how you negotiate the deal and, you know, how you structure that so that it works to your benefit. But, you know, like I said, going back to the analogy with the auto mechanic, you don't want to have that person who's in the front of the house doing the business side, working on the car.
It's so true. Like right now, Jess, if you and I were to swap positions, would you be able to do it?
Because I don't know if I'd be able to do it as smoothly as you do.
I think I'm all over the place personally, but people seem to love that for some reason. I don't really know. I think I try to juggle too much and think I can handle it, but then I trip and fall, literally. But so yeah, I just a couple more questions. Just so when you first, I know that you had joined you joined the TC part of Okay. So did you have to think about that, or did you want to join sub two at first, or like what type of mentorship like have you joined like outside of this to make you know that you wanted to be a TC?
Yeah, so how I looked at it is in my like everyday life or, my W-2 career is I've managed contracts for software companies. So I close deals, I'm on the sales side of things, and a lot of times people are like, "Oh, you're in sales, you sell." That's like a very small portion when you're dealing with large corporations. It's really the project management is pulling in the correct resources when you need to sell. Then, you're dealing with legal, you're dealing with security, you're dealing with um, the engineering team, and you're going through the requirements and you're going through so much to get a transaction to close. And I was like, well, I know how to manage paperwork. Like, that's where I says I can hone in on my expertise, because it's, you're committing to things on people's timeline. Like, if somebody doesn't get a project done at a large company and there's like something hanging over the head, like somebody could get fired. So you have to make sure that you're managing that process. And that's where I said, all right, well, I know like my ability to manage projects as in my W-2. And I was like, I think this seems like a good transitional move for me.
Okay. So there are a couple questions in the comments. So we already got how much does it cost for TC? Do you think ATL will be in the hot market after this year? Absolutely. And you might be able to answer that, Sean. ATL, Atlanta. That's a pretty hot market. I know there's some laws and regulations that might be coming up over there, but what are your predictions over there for next year?
I mean, it's a major metropolitan area, so I don't think that's ever going to die. Like, guys, in my personal opinion, with like big established cities, you don't have to worry about those markets dying. Like, can they cool off a bit? Absolutely. But if it's a big established area, it's never going to die. The only time I would be concerned about, like truly concerned about, maybe a market cooling off is if you've been crushing it in a couple rural markets over like the past 6 months to a year, yeah, there are different changes that can affect that. But something big and established like a Atlanta, like a Boston, or like an Austin, Texas, or like a Phoenix, Arizona, those areas are never going to die. There's always going to be deals to be had there.
Absolutely. And I got something you might be able to touch on right now, because I mean, there's so much I could say about this. So we have Max in the comments, and he's asking what's the best markets to wholesale for next year. I think Sean and I talk about this often, and to me, I don't know where you're at in your investment journey, but backyard investing when you're first starting is, to me, your best bet. And that's because you can literally go and give the seller a handshake and build that rapport and walk the property. Especially, I don't know if you have boots. Well, actually, I think Yuri explained this. They have a list of people you can call for boots as well, but you want to make sure you have people that can go walk the property. If you're not in backyard and you're over in California and live in Maine like I do. So what's your take on that, Sean? What's the best markets to wholesale in?
The simple answer is whatever markets that you're going to make money in. The actual answer for best markets, it depends what you want to do. Are you going completely virtual, or are you in your backyard? If you're in your backyard, and you're just in some surrounding counties, cool. You're not going to deviate from that. If you're going completely virtual, I would say do your research. Look at, migration statistics, I think, is the best. Like, which cities have had the biggest increase in people moving to them. That's typically what
The
I look
U-Haul
for.
tracker.
Huh?
The U-Haul tracker.
Yeah. Yeah, you can use that too. The
Good
U-Haul.
call.
I haven't used that in so long. The U-Haul tracker. Yeah, but guys, you want to see where people are moving to. Where is their activity? Because if you have more people coming to a city, like there's more end buyers out there for your fix and flippers to sell houses to. So, which means you have more buyers. But yeah, you gotta do your market research, right? You don't want to maybe, like, I know Florida is cooling off right now. There are a lot of properties, like you want to look at like days on market statistics if you can, see how many buyers are in the area. There's a bunch of factors into it. But I mean, honestly, you can do deals anywhere, guys. Like if you pick a market and you get really good at that market, then you're not going to have struggles. Like I know, like for us up here, or at least me, like New Hampshire is a pretty like niche market, and there are people that I know that exclusively wholesale in New Hampshire, and they crush it. They spend a boatload on marketing, but they crush it. So I don't know. I think market specific, it's kind of, in my opinion, just an excuse to not go out there and like do the thing. I mean, if you're like genuinely asking the question, like where should I focus my efforts on, you gotta do that research and make that guess for yourself, because right, it's the future. I don't have a crystal ball. All I can do is say, hey, here are the market trends that I'm watching, which makes me think this might be a good area to start marketing in heavily next year. But I'm very much the person, do not take my advice. Don't take somebody else's advice. If you're going to pick a market, like go do your own research, make an educated guess. And that way, you know, at least you can't blame it on anybody else if things don't work out.
Absolutely. Well said. And I think it also depends where you're at in your journey, because if you've never wholesaled before and you're just getting your foot wet, and then you live in Massachusetts, but you're trying to wholesale a place in, I'm gonna use California as an example again, because it's the furthest one west, right? But like, you might not know what to do. And again, this is where your transaction coordinators come in, and just having your whole deal kind of, put together where it's not falling apart. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to me, and this is the truth, you guys, I wouldn't be able to get a deal to the end of the line just by myself. I mean, I might do it, but it might be sloppy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And that's something that we do is like, well, we know who the creative title companies are to reach out to. And in regards to servicing, who services what? There are some servicing companies that will no longer do a sub 2 deal. So you have to know who's what, and have those community connections within the community.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jess. That's one of my favorite things about the TCs is for my contracts, if they're in other states that I don't have a preferred title company, I just put TBD. I'm like, my TC's got it handled. They know the people to go to. It takes a lot of the guessing out of it, which I am very thankful for, because like Ashley said, could we probably get deals to the finish line? Yeah, but it would probably take a couple of years off my life, and it would be way more stress than it
There's a lot of footwork.
Yeah, it's just basically, guys, at the end of the day, stop being cheap, hire the transaction coordinator. And I can say that because I was that cheap person that wouldn't hire the transaction coordinator at first. Hire the transaction coordinator, make your life easy. Like pretty much you're going to go to your TC, say, hey, here's my signed contract. I would like to open escrow. Do you have a preferred title company that you work with? They're going to say yes. They're going to get the transaction going. And then you're just going to get email updates. They're going to ask you some questions here and there, but you're pretty much just going to get email updates knowing that your TC's got it handled. And unless like some really extraneous circumstance comes out, like you have the property under contract for like $150,000 and there's a $300,000 lien, anything extraneous like that, that's out of the TC's control. That's out of our control, but your deal's getting to the finish line if you're using a TC.
Mm-hmm. And then it becomes, how bad do you want it? Like,
yeah.
It's not a matter of us making a decision for you. It's how bad do you want it, and what are you going to do? How are you going to clean up that lien?
Yeah.
And if you're dealing with the seller too, how are you going to find the time? Like, that's what you mainly focus on, is making sure everything is correct. When it gets to the title company, I couldn't even tell you what happens there. That's not my part. I love dealing with the sellers. I love helping in any way I can and learning, but for that, I will keep Jess right by my side.
Mm-hmm. And for us, it's really working in line with them. A title company is not going to replace a TC and vice versa. It's, what else do you have in your bucket? Where does Where does this fall through the line? Can we close sooner? Our buyer wants to close sooner, where they're really eager to close. How likely is that? What needs to happen to get those things done?
So Jess, now see, I have a deal, and I call you up and I want you to coordinate my transaction. And we want to close as fast as possible. Would you search around for the title companies to try to make that happen for me?
Like what's fast as possible? Like tomorrow?
Or like whatever it would be, like
7 days.
21 days or 7 days. Perfect.
Yeah. So I'd look at it, see what the deal is, see what kind of deal is, what's the paperwork on it, and then research the type of title companies based on that specific type of deal. Because not all title companies are gonna know what to do with that deal.
Jess, will you turn people away? Will you look at their deal and turn people away if you know it's not a good deal?
If it's not a good deal, well, I think I can't turn people away if it's not a good deal. I can advise you based on it, but I can't like tell you what you're going to close on. If we get something back and like I'm saying, like the title's not clean and there's a lien on it, then that's like, hey, do you want to move forward with this? Is this something really that you want? That's when like things kind of like you have that conversation. But if that's like if the deal is their choice, you can't really like sit there and say, this is why do you have skin in this game and what is the risk you're willing to take?
Okay,
Right.
but you'll be that voice of reason for people and have that conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Being guidance. Yeah. And that's great to have in this game, especially if you're just starting. Having guidance and just having people around you. I'm constantly learning. Sean and I do training every single day, whether it be, comping, underwriting, role playing. Like we're always trying to stay up to date with everything because things are changing. We can always, get more reps in to have better conversations with sellers. And, the more better. Does that make sense? The better of conversations you have with sellers, the better chance you have to close the deal. I don't know. It's building the rapport, but yeah. So,
well, I think too. So another deal that I'm working on, the person is the seller is a veteran and he's in foreclosure. It's an ugly situation. He's at an extended stay. The house is in California. He's in Illinois. No one can get in touch with them. And I was like,
goodness.
So the investor, I'm just like, you know what? Just send him some food. Like at the end of the day, just maybe his basic needs are not being met. And like I can only imagine like of how you feel if you're in foreclosure, but then you have all these other things, and it may seem like people who are trying to get this done and close it are kind of like picking at you. So it's like, how do you have to really communicate with them on the human aspect and say, okay, we kind of got to work outside of this. And like, what is $30, $40 worth of food? Send this to someone and say, hey, I was thinking about you. I know this is hard. That big of a deal to do when you're in the middle of a transaction.
That's amazing. Going above and beyond on your deals, building that rapport, standing out from the rest. That's how you do it. I swear by it. Do something different. Make yourself memorable. I think she's completely right. It's around the holidays, and when you get those calls and you feel like you're being picked at and attacked almost, like, and it can be nerve-wracking. And quite frankly, I might not answer the phone either. I've been in very depressive situations. I'm sure we all have. And it's not really the time you feel like picking up the phone and being like, howdy. It's kind of like, oh, I don't want to answer. So if there's a way you can shine from the rest and make that person smile or tell them or make them realize how much value you're really trying to bring them and help them, you have a better chance of getting that deal to the end of the line, right? To the finish line, to the end of the line, whatever. But I think this was great.
Company that had finish line.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I think this was great. I think this was so valuable. Sean, is there anything else we could add to any of this to bring a little bit more value, you think?
Jess, how can the people get in touch with you for TC services.
I put my Instagram page up there.
All right.
So you can go there, and my Blink card's on. I can just schedule a time from there. Glad to talk to you or reach out to me.
That's perfect.
Nice.
You guys, I'm telling you, if you've done a few deals and it's been a little bit, you know, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, just kind of just like
Or if you're picking up the paycheck and you're like, this is worth its weight in gold. Oh, I can't believe I had to do some of these things.
right. You could have,
because it makes getting that paycheck like the process a lot smoother. So it's like $1,000 if you're getting, I don't know.
I mean, I think
you're getting like a $20,000 assignment fee.
Yeah, like it is $1,000. Yeah, gonna
make sure it goes smoothly is 100% worth it.
I think I have something to show them.
Do you want to go through the drive-through or like a fast food restaurant, or do you want to have somebody the best wait staff?
Yeah, I'll take the best wait staff for the premium.
Let me see. You guys, I'm gonna brag a minute. I just got this in the mail. Okay. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without transaction coordinators, without Sean. It takes a team to get a deal to the finish line. So like Sean said, stop being cheap. I think the word I was looking for when I was having like a panic attack, like was overwhelming, right? Like you can go into a deal and it's like overwhelming and you're like, oh my God, which way? If you have somebody there keeping you grounded, like a partner or a TC or both, in my case, it's gonna make the deal get there faster. You're gonna be able to do more deals. You're gonna be able to focus on what it is that you do best. And also the reason why I thought it'd be great to bring a TC on today, because what if you feel like a closer isn't your type of, position? You don't want to be a closer. Maybe you want to be someone like Jess. And I think that's really great to bring to light, because not everybody wants to talk to sellers on the phone, or not everybody, has that, extrovert personality that's very extra like myself. So it just really depends, you guys. And I would love your feedback in the comments. Make sure you're subscribing to this channel, because we're going to keep unfolding value. And if you tell us in the comments what you want to hear next, maybe I'll just make that happen. I don't know. What do you think, Sean?
I think we can do that. I think that's a pretty easy order to fill.
Perfect. All right. Well, on that note, Jess, do you have anything else to say?
I don't have anything else to add to.
All right. We want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to bring us value and explain the importance of having a TC on a deal. Sean, thank you so much for your time tonight. Other than that, peace out.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, y'all.